In 2012, the Elland, a 150-year-old wrought iron horseboat, made a historic canal trip from Leeds to Liverpool. It's believed that the Elland is the first horseboat to complete the 127-mile route in more than 60 years. We joined the Elland and her crew at Foulridge as they prepared to leg the boat through Foulridge Tunnel. The crew enjoyed a hearty leggers breakfast at the Canalside Cargo Cafe, where Sue Day, chairperson of the Horseboating Society, explained the preparations for the day.
So the crew are arriving from far and wide. So for example, I've come from near Manchester, another crew member's come from York, he's just arrived, and there are also some other local people. Particularly who I'd like to mention is that here at Foulridge Wharf, the cafe and bistro restaurant is called Cafe Cargo, and Edward is one of the members of the family who runs the business here, and he's going to be one of the leggers. And the Horseboating Society really likes to encourage local people along the route of our journeys to get involved with our horseboating. So that's the case. The other legger is a Horseboating Society member, and he's pretty fit. He takes part in all sorts of adventure activities, running, cycling, abseiling, canoeing, you name it. And he's also a doctor. So I've got my first aid training, but it's always nice to have a doctor on board as well. So they're going to be right out across the water, and they think that they will be able to leg the entire way through. Preparations, well, the boat's ready waiting for us to get her prepared, and that means taking the top sheets off, and then we'll drop the side sheets into the hold, getting all the terminology now. But we can't put the plank across the hold unless we remove the sheets.
There is, of course, an interesting story about the tunnel, isn't there?
There is. In actual fact, it was one of those quiz questions. If you go to a canal quiz, you often get asked, what's special about Foulridge Tunnel? What happened in Foulridge Tunnel? And the answer always is that a cow fell in at the canal and actually swam all the way through the tunnel. But my canal guide told me that if I went to a pub called the Hole in the Wall, that I'd find photographs and I'd find out all about the story. So having arrived at Foulridge, of course, this was the research I wanted to do. But when I asked how do I find the pub called the Hole in the Wall, I was told that most unfortunately it's been knocked down. So this is very, very sad. So I haven't been able to do the research. In fact, asking one or two people, we all assumed the photographs and the information surely wouldn't have been thrown away, but we're not quite sure where it is. It might be in the local social centre, the village hall, but I haven't actually seen it. So I don't know a lot about the story, but this is what I do know. The cow is called Buttercup, and how she fell in the canal we don't know, but that often happens when they're perhaps, if the field comes down to the water's edge and they're trying to drink water. Anyhow, she ended up in the canal. My suspicion is that when people are trying to herd animals, sometimes they're really rather a bit too excitable about it, and they'll end up frightening the animal, because I've seen cattle and sheep and horses scatter wide when people are trying to herd them up. So my suggestion is that people actually frightened her, and as a result, in her blind panic, she therefore entered the mouth of the tunnel. And once she was in, she decided to keep going. So it's just short of a mile, so it's a very, very long way to swim. And of course, when poor Buttercup came out the other end, she would have been exhausted. How they got her out, that I don't know. Whether they sent people into the water or whether she was easier to herd in some way now that she was very tired. But whatever, apparently they revived her with brandy, which I think is brilliant. And she obviously lived to tell the tale. But today, we're going to celebrate the fact that it's the centenary of this event. It all happened in 1912. So what's going to happen is, given that she fell in on the west side and swam through to the east side, we're going to do a little ceremony of giving Buttercup a ride back on the boat to the other side. So I'm going to dress up as a cow. I haven't actually got ears, but I'll try to get a tail. And I'm going to dress up in sort of golden yellow colours, so that I'm a little bit like a buttercup colour, a brown cow, not a black and white cow. I'm going to be a brown cow, which perhaps deserved the name of Buttercup.
Due to the number of boats moored and other obstacles along the towpath, the crew use long barge poles to pull the Elland the short distance to the wharf, where it will be prepared for legging.
We're not putting a plank across the bow, because when you look at illustrations from the past, there are many different methods of doing these things, and it would only be if you had a sheeted up cargo and you couldn't drop your sheets that you'd have to put the plank at the bow of the boat. But in so doing, when you put it at the bow, there are two particular problems of that. Because the boat is narrowing off at that point, you've got less width of the boat under the plank, and therefore it's less stable. Also, should a legger have any difficulties and wish to retire or be taken over, then access to the bow is virtually impossible to do safely. So it's much. What we do is we've always put the plank at the towing mast of the boat where it's at its widest, so it makes the plank more stable, and it also means that other crew members can be close to the leggers, so that should there be a need for a changeover or any assistance, we're there on hand to help. The reason we dress in period clothing is because we've discovered that what people want to see from us is, as it were, a blast from the past, something to suggest to them that this is what it would have been like.
It's like Grand Prix, isn't it? A row of 6 lights going across. You okay? Yeah.
It's taken some planning to get ourselves ready for it, but the Horse Boating Society is very experienced at legging tunnels. We've legged many tunnels on the British canal system, including taking this particular narrowboat and others through wide tunnels. So what makes it difficult is that we'll have a very wide plank, and the leggers will in actual fact be over the top of the water.
Finally, with the legging board secured in place, the leggers, Alistair Morris and Edward Randall, take their place hanging over the edge of the boat as it's towed to the mouth of the mile-long tunnel.
So can you do the other end, Mark, to help see?
You got it? Yep. You cooked in? Yeah. You want this up? Yeah.
Right, Edward to push off, Alice to just let him get the boat over.
Yeah.
You get centred.
Okay.
Just swinging the boat round. Right, Alice going to push off a tiny bit. Can you see Adrian?
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer to be flat on my back, but you do whatever you like.
Alright, yeah, good, yeah.
They'll give us a more exact time, maybe about 40 minutes, I think. Well done, folks. I thought about
The crew may want to rest after legging through the tunnel, but the tow path at the end of the tunnel is obscured by tall trees, which means that the Elland will again have to be poled down to the next bridge, where it can finally be hitched to Bilbo Baggins, who will tow the boat for the rest of the journey.